Welcome to another episode of Untrapped, where we talk about building a life beyond business. Now, usually when we talk about leadership transformation, most people think about big dramatic changes, but my guest today has built an entire career proving that the real growth happens through what she calls micro shifts, small intentional adjustments that create massive professional and personal breakthroughs. Dr. Camille Preston is a business psychologist with over 2 decades of experience helping leaders and organizations do exactly that. As the founder of AIM Leadership, she's not just theorizing, she's worked with Fortune 100 companies like CBS and Mars, helping them optimize performance by integrating psychology, neuroscience, and strategic thinking. Her approach is unique, a 5-step process that moves leaders from awareness to activation, building agility and accountability in ways most consultants can only dream about. She's a PhD trained psychologist, an author of books like Living Real and Create More Flow, and honestly, one of those rare experts who can translate complex human behavior into practical, actionable strategies. When someone's ranged from State Department work to cattle ranching to becoming a thought leader featured in Forbes and Psychology Today, you know you're in for a fascinating conversation. And that's what we have today with Dr. Camille Preston. Dr. Preston, welcome to the show. I'm very glad to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited for our conversation.
So there would have been an intro, so the audience is going to have a little bit of background on you, but I would just love to hear from you in a couple of sentences. Like for somebody that doesn't know anything about you, how would you describe who you are and what you do?
Sure. I call myself a business psychologist, but in fairness, a client actually started calling me that, and I realized it really resonates.
Very cool.
So for, 24 years, I've been working with executives, really helping people who are smart, driven, successful, and on this upward trajectory, accelerate. Not just to drive more results, but to have more fulfillment, impact, presence, kind of the full Monty. So it's the intersection of psychology, executive coaching, leadership theory, personal cheerleader, and it spans across one-on-one teams. I've just finished my 3rd book and love doing keynotes too. So kind of anything related to awakening someone's inner mastery and sense of like ability to drive impact.
Love that. And I resonate a lot with the idea of a business psychologist because I do feel like it's not a conversation that we're having enough that I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine comes to me and he wanted to leave his job and he kind of wanted to do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
My whole conversation with him was about the mindset aspect of that. I was like, it's that the marketing strategies and what business model and financials and P&Ls, like all that stuff is out there. That's the easy part. The hard part is what do you do when you wake up in the morning and everything is riding on you, winning or losing? Like that's the hard part, in my opinion, about entrepreneurship and business. It's like that's a mental load that most people that work a regular job, so to speak, don't have to deal with. Is that
100%.
would you agree with that, or do you have a different
100%.
perspective?
And people don't know if they're a me person or a we person. Like some people flourish in a team and they just can't stand being on their own or pulled back in an entrepreneurial initiative. And other people are like, I can work from 4 in the morning till 10 in the morning and then go play. Like, bring it. Right. So
Right.
you have to know
Yeah.
yourself. And then the other thing is that even for people who know themselves and are doing well and they're moving forward, it's hard to paint a chair when you're sitting in it. So you can't see your own blocks. You can't see where you sabotage and set yourself back. So that's the part that I think is really, really fulfilling. I don't know if you watched that whole trend with the shadow workbook. There was a young woman who created a shadow workbook that was really popular during the pandemic, and it's really shadow light. It's really like there's not a lot of theory in it, and it opened this gateway for people to really start to understand like I like wherever I go, whether I stay or leave, whether I'm in this job or this relationship, I will always be with myself. So that's where I really find that nexus of like, let's turn the dial for you. And then it has this massive ripple, personal, professional, and beyond.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I think that I don't know if I don't know if there's any avoiding this problem, but when I look at kind of the decisions that people make in their life, whether it's to go to college or not, or to be a tradesperson or start a business, doesn't matter. I think we underestimate how much of that is conditioning and environmental, the decisions that we make. And I think to what you're talking about, in my opinion, I think the only point over time is to start being inner directed, is to start connecting with that person, like you said, that you have with you all the time. What do I actually want? Do I need a 7-figure business? Do I need that? Like, or do I just want it because my parents didn't have it or because society tells me I should have it or any of that? And so I think
Spot on. Absolutely.
arguably you're doing the most important work in getting people to connect with that voice.
I have to say I'm so blessed. So I'll tell you a quick kind of like funny story about the book, which is I had no intention of writing another book. And December 8th at 4 in the morning, it was like knock, knock, knock. Here's the entire outline. And I literally was
Oh
like, two
wow.
kids, two books, I'm done. I rolled over and it was like knock, knock, and it just kept getting louder and louder. And anyway, the long and the short is I'm very blessed by a supportive husband. The book came out and I had no idea how timely and relevant the book would be. Now, the part that you just catalyzed is the second chapter is all about the lies we've been sold, the illusions we bought into, that success is this, happiness is this. If you get this, you'll feel fulfillment and what have you. And it strips all of those away and says, wait a minute, you got to figure this out for yourself. And so many of us have just bought or accepted what's happening around us. And that's gotten so muddled because we have so much stimulus coming from so many different places. And all we see is the highlight reels of everybody around us. And all we look at is our own blooper reels. And so, really starting to peel
Right.
that back is really like it's an incredible time we're in right now to start to do some of that.
It is. I agree. Yeah, I'm very quickly starting to get worried that you and I did not schedule enough time because I feel like we could just talk about these things for hours and
Yeah,
hours and
all
hours.
good.
But as I mentioned before the call, like we spend half our time in Costa Rica, and that was a big part of that was just kind of being like, why not? Like, why couldn't we? What's stopping us? And it's like, well, we have family and we need to be here for fit. But it's like, but do we? Like, is that a lie that we're telling ourselves? Like, what is the actual root of that? And so, yeah, again, just to say, I
What is
love
it that
the work you're
matters? Like
doing.
you've really checked in and been like, okay,
Right.
nature matters, quality time with family matters, like being in an environment that's lower stress, less concrete. Those were some of the things that came out in that short period of time.
Right.
And I will just say for people who are listening, this is the work I love doing. It's also really scary. It's really scary to question all these
Yeah.
assumptions that you've bought into your entire life. And so that's why doing it with someone in a peer group, we've got groups who are working on it that is really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, once you start, we do sort of accept a lot of these lies, but we have to recognize that like there is a certain structure and order that comes from them. And so when you peel all that away, it's like, oh wow, okay, now I'm free, but it's also chaotic. I have to sort of start putting these things back together myself. So
The
you're
untethering.
you're the CEO tethering, is that what that's called? Like being sort of
No, it
linked
can be
to
untethering. It can be untethering
untethering.
to
I got you.
to strip all of those away. And the
I
one
love
other
that.
part that I will say is because I just want to pull a thread through that you had mentioned. Um, what I'm seeing is people are shallowing, having less real, less authentic, less genuine conversations, and they're safe, easy, but they're not very fulfilling. And so they're putting all the hard stuff in the basement and pushing it down and unconsciously limiting their ability to have joy and delight and happiness. And so what we're seeing is the way we're living shallow, like by someone else's rules, is driving the mental health. We're in a mental health pandemic of depression,
Yeah.
anxiety, loneliness, burnout. And for people listening, 1 in 5 adults feels lonely on a daily basis. And that's the equivalent of
Wow.
smoking 15 cigarettes. Like that's what it does to your health. It's the equivalent, which is
Wow.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. That's
Crazy.
unbelievable. I this is probably a conversation for an entire other episode, but I love what you just said about shallowing because I've noticed that trend. It really got pronounced for me when COVID happened. I noticed this trend of it seemed like our desire, either desire or ability, I won't say which, to think deeply and analyze things was just getting less and less refined. Like we were very everything's so binary. You're either this or that, or you're this team or that group or this group. Like there's no nuance. Like we've just sort of lost our ability to be like, well, sometimes I'm this, but also sometimes I'm this, and you're that, and but that doesn't mean like I don't know. That shallowing really resonates with me though. But
So let me and I feel like I should just tell you what chapter this is, but
okay,
that's chapter 7. This idea that tension creates consciousness, like if you can hold the tension, like the both and, like I'm this and I'm that, or I like this and I like that, like holding the tension is hard and that elevates our consciousness. But we're moving so fast and we're so bifurcated that we often are like either or, black white, put it in a box, move it on, right? Like so you're tuned into a lot of the complexities in the work that we do.
yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I'm gonna definitely have to pick up your book and read it. Sounds like I would enjoy it really thoroughly. So you're founder CEO at AIM Leadership. So help me understand, like, what does your role look like in the org? Like, how do you fit into the bigger picture of the company? Obviously, I'm sure you're not doing everything yourself. So, like, what exactly is your sort of lane as the CEO?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a lane that I'm currently redefining. I've just brought in
Okay.
someone who's just an operations maverick because what I love to do is the creative. I love the service and I love the creative. So it's been definitely a learning curve. Like the best version of myself is in service and creating. And so right now I'm doing more. I'm running like the front of the business and the face of the business, and I'm actively working to step back.
Oh, very cool. And so how are you, like, what does a day in the life look like right now? Or if you want to do, a week, like how do you balance all the, it seems like you have multiple things that would have to happen here. Obviously, like you just finished a book, so there's writing sometimes, you have the actual coaching, but then there's research and staying up to date with things. You seems like you have many plates spinning all at once. So what does a day in your life look like balancing all of that?
Yeah. Um, don't hate me, but I'm an extreme morning person. So I usually get up at like 3:34, like
Oh,
naturally,
very good.
work for a couple hours, have a solid workout, a hit workout, a run, what have you, time with the family, launch the kids back to the office. That's my rhythm. And then I'm like, I put the kids to bed. I go to sleep too. Like I'm an early,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
bed if I'm getting up that early. Um, but I definitely start to think about my days, but often my weeks as like chunks, right? Like there's client service, there's the back end part, there's the creative part, there's a keynote part, right? Like so there's the keynote part, the writer part, and the kind of service part. And then there's kind of a thought leadership part, and a systems and a technology. And I realized that I I'm better at the earlier ones. I don't love the back
Yeah.
as much. Um,
Well, hey, when you start a business, unfortunately, you have to sort of uh, be good at all of them. But yeah, it's good at some point to recognize, like, I need to pass this ball on to somebody else.
yeah, I have a woman who I've worked with for 14 years. I've had my business probably
Wow.
24 years, but I've had someone for 14 years who knows everything about me, is absolutely God's gift to my like sanity and happiness, and we've never met. And there's a part of me
Oh,
that's like, at
wow.
some point we should probably meet, but it just works.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's been fun. So
That's it. I love that element of technology is great. I mean, we just have so I think about if my grandfather had tried to start a business and I'm like customers in another country, no way. Shipping for all that's like it's so much easier for us now to be able to have such a broad reach that I think it's just wonderful. Um, I really am curious to hear from you about uh, kind of trends, especially around technology and especially AI. Like you've obviously been researching and in the weeds, so to speak, of how technology affects us and how we use it. So I'm just curious, like, what trends are you seeing right now in business as a whole?
yeah, so one trend that literally just went public today was we used to have a 10-week class that we did pretty regularly. We just put that asynchronously, and it actually it came out of a raving fan client came back and said, I just took this new CEO role. I need my team to go through your course. I can't afford it. We just came out of bankruptcy. She took over after bankruptcy. So we've innovated. We've put that content online, and now we're doing more team coaching. So like it's like focusing my time. So that's one type of technology. A second type of technology is we've built out an application that really does a lot of the things that you learn from working with me or working with AIM leadership. And it's something that you can use, a technology you can use in the spaces in between. So we're really bringing all of our content and our media through AI to middle managers, people who might not necessarily have access. Um, I'm seeing AI is a part of absolutely everything you do. So even people who are incredibly resistant, I'll say, "Did you order lunch today?" And they're like, "Yep." And I was like, "That's AI, right?" Like
Right.
what you use. To the second part of your question, I think what I'm seeing is a bimodal distribution. There's people who are absolutely terrified and really resistant, and then there's people who are using it intensely and sometimes indiscriminately. So there's almost like this bimodal distribution, but it's coming fast.
Yeah, and you mentioned the like the asynchronous stuff. So what does that actually look like with you guys in AI? Is that you specifically you mentioned like giving them access to you in the spaces between calls. So like how is that actually how have you set that up?
It's a technology platform. If people are
Oh,
interested, they
very cool.
can email us at aimup@aimleadership.com. We're actively betaing it with clients who people we've partnered with where it's being betaed in their organizations. And the idea is that everybody is moving so fast and people are
Yeah.
craving space to remember who they are. And
Hmm.
I don't think AI can replace relationships, but it can be a ground for us to build our capacity, build our skills.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think about, I mean, really any coaching environment. I've been thinking about this a lot. It's like you have your live sessions, but it's definitely great if you had just as a crude example, like a chatbot, like a Dr. Camille Preston chatbot, where in between it's like, hey, what would she say about this? And it's like, well, based on her last, 6 interviews, this is what she has to say, and you're like, okay, great. And then they can take that one little insight, and they can make it until the next call, right? Um,
I think that's really exciting. I think the parameters on that you got to make sure are tight.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, AI has a tendency to do its own thing. And you mentioned something I wanted to ask you, but you mentioned people using it indiscriminately. I would love to hear like what are the things you're seeing as far as this trend that have you a little nervous or maybe skeptical or a little more hesitant in terms of how you've seen people, using it to do things.
Um, we recently had a transition on our team, and um, I could tell I that person was using AI, and I there wasn't
Ah,
thought that like, and I hear clients
right.
saying it. I think the interesting challenge for a lot of the clients that I'm dealing with is your team is going to use AI, whether you want them to or not. And so then how do you start to create the right conditions where people can experiment and practice safely? Because if you outlaw it, they'll still use it, just not in the right way.
Right. Yeah, they just won't tell you about it. And I would love to hear like so let's say I'm a business owner and I'm coaching with you and yeah, obviously AI is on everybody's mind and businesses are trying to figure out do we use it, do we not, how do we use it? What are the ethics you mentioned like keeping tight reins on things especially in healthcare and legal and insurance. So but if I'm a client of yours and I'm having that situation like do you have principles or sort of guidelines or how are you coaching people through this fairly complicated situation in their
It's a
business?
great question. It's a great question. Um, I have been working with a number of clients as they've navigated I do a lot of mostly C suite, how they are thinking about the decisions and how they are considering the
Mhm.
decisions. And then there's the there's directives or decisions they make, but making sure they're considering the tails of what else is happening, right? Like the indirect implications of what might be happening.
Right. So it's not just about, hey, you want to use AI for this one particular task. Like, what are the downstream or potential downstream effects of that? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I don't think you can legislate how people use it. I think you have to, again,
Right.
you have to build comfort in the tension of that people will use it. And how do you educate? It's like a value, a culture. How do you communicate that? Um, and then I think, um, as a leader, how do you develop your capacity to be comfortable with uncertainty?
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to a lot of business owners about it. And one of the things that always comes up is, and one of the reasons that AI won't fully replace everybody for sure, but a lot of jobs is because even if you're using AI, you still need to know what right looks like. So if I go to AI and I ask it, how do I implement AI in my organization? It's going to give me an answer. I still have to know. I have to be able to look at that answer and decide, nah, I don't think that's right or not. And that's where I think it does get very indiscriminate. When you have somebody in a business, in a department, they're just using AI and just taking it and sending it. And so it seems like there's probably I don't know what this would look like in an organization, but there would probably need to be training about the discretion and discernment. It's like, how do we evaluate what AI is giving us? Or is there just a process for that or something like that? But
I think
yeah, that makes a lot
companies
of
are
sense.
starting to think about it. And I got honored on Saturday night at a gala, and someone
Ah, very
there,
cool.
yeah, it was really exciting. I was surprised by friends showing up, and uh, she's running AI at a large tech company, and she had a great way of saying this. Um, we don't know what AI etiquette is yet. People don't know necessarily how, like, what the rules of the road or what's okay, what's not okay, and um, it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting to be in the middle of it as it's happening, right? It's like it could go a bunch of different ways. I even had somebody I interviewed last week. He was saying, he's like, I'm not sure that there's a scenario where we don't end up moving somewhat towards like a Terminator style kind of situation. He's like, AI is, we think about it and creating content and giving access to people. He's like, but there are governments also using AI to decide, what are these people doing and what are they doing and what's our political strategy and all that. And so anyway, that's one possible outcome out there for, where we end up. But it is a very interesting time for us to be in the middle of this.
And I think that
Um,
even in that same, like, there's a bimodal distribution. Some people are using it indiscriminately, and some people are not using it at all. And
right,
the book,
right.
the ends are probably.
Yeah, yeah. So what's something that's going really well right now with AIM leadership or with your business? I mean, obviously you relatively recently finished the book.
Yeah, the book came out June 9th, and
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, it's gotten 2 awards, so we're kind of excited about that.
Oh,
But
very cool.
feedback has been really, like, again, the book came out of a season of grief. I had 5 deaths in 5 months, and that kind of
Oh,
catalyzed
wow.
the book. But what I didn't realize when I was writing it is it's really a manifesto for our time. It's really a statement for not only the mental health crisis that we're in, the surging mental health, like depression, anxiety, burnout, isolation,
Right.
but it's also, speaks to our political crisis, our economic, like,
Mhm.
contraction, where the solution is real conversations that are genuine, where there's listening. And I think there's a real opportunity for us on the horizon if people are able to grow themselves up to be able to hold the tension, to hold the complexity that is going to be essential to solving where we are.
So I'm going to ask you a question simply that I recognize is probably the furthest thing from a simple question.
Okay.
What is your thought on how we got here? Like, I don't think we're the same as we were 50 years ago, almost as a people. Like, so how did we? I guess the shorter version of this question would be: how did we get to a place where so many people are increasingly uncomfortable with the tension? When did that start being such a problem for us?
I'm not sure my answer right now would be the same as after a long run, but I'll give it a go.
Sure,
And
sure.
when I was finishing my doctorate, John Haidt was a new faculty at UVA, and many people might know him as the anxious generation. And so he was saying 2012. 2012 is when things changed with technology, and I do think there's a confluence of things happening, right? Like, technology made it easier to do more things faster with less connection, right? My first book was called Rewired: How We're Living in This Always On, Always Connected, Overwired World, and how technology is changing us. And so I think there is that force that happened, that technology, like, things became more accessible and in our hand. And then I think there's something that happened in the pandemic where people contracted and relationships shallowed, and we got a little bit more transactional, but muscles atrophied. Our ability to have real conversations has significantly atrophied, and people are craving connection, and yet they don't know how to begin to initiate it. So I think it's a confluence of technology. I think it's a confluence of um, kind of some political, societal trends, but I think it's a direct reflection of what's happening politically in our country. Like, we are seeing such a polarization. We're seeing such a narrowing in terms of what information people are taking in, what conversations people
Right.
are having. And I mean, you know this because you're outside the country. Like, America's kind of the laughing stock of the world right now for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And and yet we are contributing to this, right? So I think
Right.
the um I think the answer is starting to slow down, listen inward, create presence with ourselves so that we can then have presence with others. And I'm
Yeah, I love that. And
curious,
you kind
how
of
how would you answer that? Would you agree as someone who's in Texas but also out of the country? What do you see?
Um, I will say to one of your last points there, like it absolutely is one of the refreshing parts about being in Costa Rica, where they're like Trump who, like Biden who. It does. It's like it could not be less on anybody's radar. Nobody asks me about it. Nobody talks to me about it. And you know what? Life goes on just fine. We don't have to have these conversations about it, and it's wonderful. So I do appreciate that aspect of it. Um, I guess to use your term, I could see kind of a bimodal possibility here. It's like depending on how far down the conspiracy rabbit holes you want to go, like I could maybe there's some sort of powerful cabal that's kind of steering us in this direction. I don't really even know how to unpack that, but I do think what you said seems like the obvious answer to me is that I think that in a nutshell, I think that technology at least for a time kind of outpaced our level of consciousness. Like we had more tools than we were sophisticated enough to use well as humans. Like we got these devices that were great things for connecting us worldwide and giving us information in a moment's notice and all that. And then you fast forward 20 years and you would think that humanity would just be the smartest they've ever been because we all have all this information. And instead we have more time on YouTube and Netflix and other much more nefarious sites distracting ourselves or medicating. I don't know. I won't presume to know what everybody's motivation is, but we have all of that. And then the problem becomes that that is what starts to be the only thing that feels good because it's such a quick high. And so then you disagreeing with my opinion is uncomfortable. And I just don't want to do that. I'd rather just go back to feeling good.
100%. 100%. And not being able to sit with the hard conversations and be forced to navigate those conversations. Um,
Yeah.
I I learned in writing my first book that hot tubs are really good for my reflection. And so right before the pandemic, we got a hot tub, and it was just great for that. Was like that was mommy's one place that like no one was allowed during like mommy's time. Um, but more recently, my daughter has really gotten into hot tubbing with me, and it's lovely because the conversations we have out there are really profound, and it's always an interesting moment to just hear what she's actually thinking. And like, very dear friends just went through a divorce, and she had a lot of really good questions about that, and um, making meaning about what's happening in school or friendships, and like, it's that type of unplugged time. And that type of time in nature that I think is so vital. And um, I think people are craving their capacity to really have that time to be real.
Yeah. I agree, and I think I heard somebody put it this way before that you can't just have intellectual input all the time or stimulus. And you mentioned stimulus earlier in the call. There has to be a time for intellectual output, even if that's just thinking and sort of philosophizing and asking questions. Like you've got to have a balance. Otherwise, in. Going back to what we talked about earlier with sort of tethering ourselves to some of these lies, like you will, whether you want to or not, start to believe and think whatever you're consuming on a long enough timeline. It's like,
100%. I was just looking at what chapter it is. Chapter 10 is we talk about listening inward, and the idea that
okay,
we've lost the ability to actually think like, what is it I think? What is it I believe? Because we're so used to
right,
things coming at
right.
us with such intensity. In my
Hmm.
first book, I Rewired, I talked about the volume, the velocity, the variety, and the veracity of information. So this was 2010, 2011, and people were not talking about
Wow.
this at the time. People were like, veracity.
Right.
I was like, yep, like veracity is going to be one of the
Yeah.
biggest things. But we're peppered. The volume, the variety, the velocity, and the veracity of information can be just consuming to manage that. And people need new skills. And I'm excited that like based on my practice, I'm seeing people coming saying, "Yes, we want this." So that gives me hope. What gives you hope?
That's um I well for one, so getting outside of the bubble is really helpful because you do realize that like a lot of for better or for worse, a lot of the problems that you and I are talking about, they seem much worse in the West. And so when I get into a country like Costa Rica, is technically third world, although their infrastructure is amazing, you still find people that are spending a lot more time in the park in the downtown area, sitting without their devices and talking to each other and watching their kids and doing these things. And so you see that world exists. It's not all just the world that we're in here. And I'm also really encouraged by, I've seen the same thing you've said, that people do want that connection. Like the people that are willing to sit in those, to sit with attention and to be uncomfortable, like they're very much looking for it. And I also find that very encouraging, um, from a business perspective, because that's a great opportunity for us to create those experiences for people, to live events, retreats. I notice you do retreats as part of AIM leadership. It's like people love that. Get me out of my bubble, get me out of my environment, get me somewhere new, somewhere novel, get my brain working. And so I'm really encouraged by the demand for that. I mean, I think it speaks a lot to
What's
the
that?
type of people that are out there that want those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're seeing we for people listening, we do a couple of different ski retreats. So how do you get altitude, literally and physically, to get perspective on your life, and then some
Right.
more tropical ones because people are ready to be in nature. They're ready to connect. They're really ready for this next chapter.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, the nature piece, I can't overstate that enough, at least in my personal experience. There's something, and I'm sure we could measure it, there's something immediately calming about getting into a natural environment and just being in the rhythm of things.
I will share. It's interesting. This is a little bit personal. Um, we're in the process of renovating a family home. I'm the fourth generation, and
Oh
we're
wow.
lifting the house literally today. It's 2 weeks behind. We're
Oh,
lifting the house today, and I was so struck by we had to take down some trees and we had to disrupt the root system around the house and how disrupting that was to me, like physically, like
yeah.
upsetting, and like I got sick. Just like, so it just makes you realize that I am much more connected to nature than I realized, and much more in need of being in that relationship. So yeah, it's really humbling.
I would be so bold as to say that I think it's universal. I can't say that with 100% confidence, but the number of people I talk to, see online that just desire, I want to get out of the city. I want to have an acre. I want to grow my own food. I want to be outside more. I want to walk barefoot. Like there's such a universal thing that seems like people crave that I think would be silly to not take that seriously. Like it's not learned. It's not
Mhm.
something they were taught. Like it's just kind of this natural thing that we seem to be born with, is this, like you said, a connection to our environment, which, I mean, let's face it, any traditional tribal hunter gatherer, they knew it.
Yeah.
They had to do it. They
Normal.
had to
Yeah.
live based on where food was and water was and all that. So
Mhm. So
yeah.
I will plant a seed for the listeners and bring it back to our earlier comment, which is to say you can go into a forest and you know the trees are connected, that they're talking to each other, that their root system is intertwined. And then you can say, I can feel the like primal connection to my relatives, cousins that you haven't seen, or relatives, your kids, your siblings, so you can feel that connection in family. I believe we're all connected, and yet as a culture we're really struggling to go there, because if we realize that we are all interconnected and all one, just like the trees are all interconnected, it would be really hard to hold, like be present and hold the ways we treat people.
Right.
And that would be a tension that could fracture us, right? And so we separate, we shallow because we're not ready to hold that level of tension. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And again, that's probably a 2 hour conversation just in and of itself, is what you just brought up there. It's no, it's, gosh, I think it's so true. Man, it's, yeah, it's such a complicated thing that I think we have a big enough task trying to get people to use technology less. But I mean, I do think I'm encouraged by, especially, I think AI has really accelerated this. You see it, that as the technology has kind of exponentially increased over the last year or two, you do see a lot of people that are like, but do we need more technology? Like, is that really the thing that's going to solve our problems? Like, we've already gotten this far and look what things are, kind of where we are in the state of things. And so I'm encouraged that I do think there's a group of people, a movement of people out there that are less excited about innovation at this point, and more excited about some of the basic things, the connection and, um, holding
And I think
attention and consciousness.
technology to support those is awesome, but it's technology
Right.
not in spite of those things. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I love that I could run a Facebook ad to put people in a live event. That's wonderful. Great that people can sign up online. but I don't want the live event to be everybody chatting with AI about their problems and not interacting, right? It's like those are two very different things.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how obviously in business we have the easy ways to sort of judge things. We have revenue and all that, but like I'm curious for you as the CEO, like when you wake up or on a monthly or quarterly basis, what are you using to measure if you're winning? How do you measure if AIM leadership is on the right track?
Gosh, your question is so timely. And just for folks listening, I am wired. I am a product of America and corporate America, and it's very
Right.
easy to be like focused on the metrics in your bank account. And I was just listening to a recording of a conversation with a mentor, and he asked me probably 6 times, how do you like, are you successful? How do you know you're successful? Because in his mind, the book's been winning awards, it's been changing lives, it's been activating people. He's like, Camille, that's success. And our conditioning and our wiring is saying, yeah, but I wish I had that, right? Like, and so, you know, one of the hardest parts at post launch is continuing to live in alignment and say, yeah, I wish X, Y, and Z. And like, this is success. Like, the quality of relationship with my kids and my spouse and my presence and
Yes.
my richness of my community and my ability to be in nature and the physical health my spiritual practices, like all of those are metrics that I think we so too often push aside. So,
I
um,
could not agree with that more.
but it's an interesting tension for people who are
Yeah.
listening, right? Because you will always find someone who's doing better than you.
Right.
I have
Right.
one client
No, I
who,
think
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want
I
to
was just
interrupt
gonna
you.
say, I have one client who's literally been number one for 15 years. She's That's not like happiness in her mind, right? She literally is
Right.
the number one producer in a money driven industry. And she's like, Camille, there's something more. And I'm like, yeah, there is.
Right. Yeah, I heard I was listening to an interview, it was actually with Bob Marley a long time ago, and the interviewer was kind of pushing him on his net worth. And so like, you've sold a lot of records, like how much do you make? And he's like, well, certainly you have to be rich. And Bob Marley's response was, money makes you rich. And I just thought that was like such a great response to that question of like, we're optimizing for different things. Like if you want money, go have money, but like I already have, what I'm looking for. And I think, back to tension that we keep mentioning, I think there should be a lot more permission for people that's like, maybe you're okay making 50K a year. If your kids run up to meet you at the door and your wife is super happy with you and you have plenty of time for recreation, like, then who cares?
Right.
Really? It's
Yeah.
like, so what? Somebody has more. There's plenty of people with $1 million. I think about it like this: billionaires still commit suicide. So, like, obviously, on a long enough timeline, having all the money in the world is not going to fix some of the more core things that we've been talking about this entire
Money
call.
amplifies things. If you're happy, it'll
Yeah.
make you happier. If you're miserable, it'll make you. The subtitle of
Right.
is redefining success, presence, and happiness. Because at the end of the day, that's what it means, right? Like, I want redefining my success, my happiness, and my presence. Like, that's powerful. I think this is also the risk of technology and the risk of AI. More, faster, faster, faster. Like, that's a risk factor. And it can be very
Yeah.
easy
So
to be sucked into it. Yeah.
I agree. So, like, on that, in that same vein, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for AIM leadership, especially around AI? Like, what are you sort of looking forward to? What are you nervous about? Like, what does the future look like especially with where technology is going?
Um, it's interesting because I'm definitely pulled. Like, I'm very excited about this technology. I think the
Yeah.
world needs more human connection. I could not be more
Right.
excited about the timing of the book. Um, you know, for me, I think we're going to be doing more asynchronous content to like set the foundation so that when we convene
Hmm.
people, there's much more rich conversations. And we're already seeing this
Right.
where teams come together and they do this content independently and then they're able to really dive into much more substantial, impactful conversations. And it hasn't happened. I haven't launched it yet, but I'm seeing more people saying, "Hey, I want to bring together my peers and have a conversation about what living real means and how we show up differently, like how we as friends differently. So help us. We like the thesis. We need help building the muscles to really put our technology down. How do I parent differently, knowing that I don't want this and I don't want that? How do I set the foundations of my company, because I know in my heart that X, Y, and Z will be the underbelly, like will be the downfall of my organization. How do I live that as a leader? I think these are all really vital, hard questions that are going to be coming up. I'm curious
Yeah.
with how,
Yeah.
do you, would you agree, or what resonates?
I think I think the technology will. I think that people are in kind of. I would say the more outspoken people are kind of in two camps, and I think we have the sort of like we could do with less technology. Maybe we don't need any of that, and then you have the people that are like, how can I use this technology to anticipate when that country's going to attack so I can hit them first? Like those are kind of the opposite ends of this spectrum. I think as quickly as it's accelerating, it's going to make it very obvious who's in what camp sooner. My only hope is that sort of as a collective that we can raise our consciousness enough that we're able to be responsible about this technology, because we could 100% end up in a bad place. And so I think in alignment with everything you've talked about here today, if we want to solve this, I think the thing we need to focus on is raising our consciousness as quickly or faster than we're innovating on the technology side.
I love it. I agree. I could not agree more. I'm excited to hear our podcast because I'm going to take notes when I actually listen to it again. That's. I think you're.
That's great.
I think you're. I think you're spot on.
I love that. So we are getting close. I want to be respectful of your time. We're getting very close to 45 minutes. I want to ask you though. I'm curious. Is there anything in particular that is like frustrating you right now, either in your business or in growth and strategy? Like, what's kind of is there anything nagging at you that you're like, man, I really would love to be able to solve this?
Yeah, we're definitely in a growth curve on technology and systems, and we're really
Mm.
looking at. Um, I was using this analogy. Some people enjoy the pastime of taking care of their house, right? Like they love
Hmm.
mowing the lawn and like doing the flower beds. And I'm all about like, I want a house that's so functional that I don't have to worry about that. Like I want to enjoy the backyard,
Right.
but if it's bricks so I don't have to mow the lawn, like I'm in for that. And so
Yeah.
that's what we're really focused on right now is our systems so that we can spend the time that we really love convening, connecting, elevating, helping leaders lean into their own consciousness, because I do believe that's the crux. And I think, again, touching a little bit close to the vein, I think we're in a very precarious place in our country, and we need space where people can step away from the extremes together and hold that tension collectively to heal. And I think that's going to be a really tall order based on where we are.
I agree. I agree. I think I agree on both fronts. I think it is the answer, and I think it's also going to be really challenging. On the what you were mentioning about the systems front, I'm curious. So, if you had a magic wand and there was just one thing that's kind of on the radar for AIM Light leadership that you could solve immediately, what would be that system that you're like, oh, this would be great momentum for us?
I think it's as a great question. Um, I'm really present to the kind of the inefficiencies of like I feel like to go from the creative inspiration out into the world, it feels like it takes too many steps to get out into the world, whether it's like
Yeah.
QC or expectations. And so that's where we're really working on, and that could be whether that's video content going out or social media or we summarize we have over 100 resources where we summarize ideas into a 3 to 5 page document. So because people aren't reading as much, they can gather these key insights and really elevate their thinking. And I wish we could streamline parts of that. If you have ideas, I'm all in.
Yeah, that's I mean, we can certainly have that conversation. I might have to know a little bit more about kind of what you're thinking to see if I can offer any insight, but that's great. That's very cool. So we're right on time. Is there anything, sort of closing thoughts or final things you want to leave the audience with before we wrap?
Yeah, I'm super grateful for this conversation. I think, if I was going to like leave people with one thing beyond go to our website, livingreal.aimleadership.com to like listen to part of the chapter, download some free exercises, like get yourself into it. Give yourself a little grace. Start to explore how you spend more time listening deeply to yourself, to your wisdom, to your desires, to your longing. Because once you start listening to yourself, it'll be easier for others to hear what you need, to support what you need. But it's an inside out job.
I love that. I have nothing to add to that. Well, all I can do is thank you so much, Dr. Camille Preston. This
Pleasure.
was a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you coming on
My pleasure. And look forward to continuing it.
for sure.